Hello everyone and welcome back. I am as always Inquisitor Aura, and this is how to roleplay in the Elder Scrolls Online, and this week we are going to be taking a look at the Khajiit. The Khajiit of Elsewhere are an inherently duplicitous people, though not maliciously so. Their humors are fluid, ebbing and cresting like the tides and the light of the moons that they revere so much. The children of Elsewhere are flighty and free, who can smile at you one moment and rob you blind the next. But to truly understand what it is to be Khajiit, you have to understand how they view the world and their place in it. The first thing that it is important in a Khajiit's life to understand are the moons, Maser and Secunda, or as the Khajiit call them, Jode and Joan. Jode and Joan, the twin moon gods, have a very real effect on the Khajiit. The moon's phases at the time of a Khajiit's birth dictate what form they will take as an adult. Khajiit are subtly bound to what is called the lunar lattice, or the Khajiit. All newborn Khajiit appear incredibly similar at birth, but their morphology changes rapidly during their first few weeks of life. As a result, there are more than 20 forms of Khajiit. However, most player Khajiit fall into a very small number of these types, specifically the Suthe and Sutherat, the Cathay and Cathayrat, the Pamar and Pamarrat, and the Daji and Dajirat. The Rat designator at the end simply being that this particular breed is slightly larger and physically stronger. As the moons dictate the form that Khajiit will take as an adult, it is extremely important for your roleplay to understand which phases of the moon are equivalent to which form of Khajiit. To facilitate this and to keep the length of this video to less than novel length, I will put a link in the description box below of the phases of the moon and each breed of Khajiit that it is associated with. This strange shifting morphology is not the only effect the lunar lattice has on Khajiiti society. However, this definition of form is really the only physical manifestation of Khajiit. The Khajiit also believe that the twin moon gods are the source of their most prized crop, moon sugar. Moon sugar is a grainy, sugar-like powder refined from moon sugar cane that grows in southern areas of Elsewhere, specifically the Tenmar Forest and Khenarthi's Roost. It is used as a spice in food as well as a reagent in magic, but to the Khajiit, it is not simply a spice. Moon sugar is the holiest of substances. The Khajiit believe it to be crystallized moonlight. With the importance of the twin moon gods in Khajiiti life, consumption of moon sugar should come as no surprise. To them, the moons are divine, and the moon sugar was a part of them, carried down by moonlight and washed up on the shores of the Topal Sea. Thus, consumption of moon sugar is viewed as taking a part of the souls of Joan and Jode into them. As such, the Khajiit partake of moon sugar daily. Because of this, they have built up a resistance to its addictive qualities. When it is consumed by other races, however, it quickly becomes an addiction. And we can't talk about moon sugar without talking about skooma. Skooma is the processed derivative of moon sugar, and it is as addictive to Khajiit as it is to the other races. Most Khajiit frown on its production and usage, viewing it as a perversion of the twin moon god's life force, but many make and sell skooma to Khajiit and outsider alike. Because of skooma's relationship with moon sugar, both substances are highly illegal. Skooma is illegal everywhere, including Elsewhere, and moon sugar is illegal outside of the Khajiiti's home province, which means that any wandering Khajiit likely has a small amount of moon sugar on them for personal use. If they don't, they know where they can get it. Moon sugar smuggling is common, and chances are, where there is a Khajiit caravan, there is moon sugar. All of this, everything that is Khajiit, is the Riddlethar, the Two Moons Dance. The Two Moons Dance is much more than a religion, it is a way of life. It is being Khajiit. Introduced to the Khajiit by the main Ridthar Ridata, it is the cosmic order that drives Khajiiti life, culture, and activity. The subtle shifts of the moons and the pull of the tides is in every Khajiit's blood, for they have an innate sense of Jode and Joan's many phases. The moon's interplay has a psychological effect on the Khajiit, though how they affect the Catmen is dependent entirely on the individual. There are no group mental transformations, and most of the changes are as subtle as the shifting of the moons. This leads me into my next point. Another one of the defining traits of Khajiit are their fluid personalities. Khajiit are both reserved and friendly, caring and cruel. While this is true of many races and individuals in Khajiit, these polar opposite personality traits often appear in rapid succession or even simultaneously, leading many to believe that the Khajiit are unstable. This is simply not true. The Khajiit are fluid in their thinking, fluid in their mannerisms. They aren't doing it on purpose, but neither are they restraining their shifting natures. This wibbly-wobbliness is related to their creation story, which is unique amongst other such tales. In it, Azura, often associated with the Daedric prince of the same name, though the Khajiit will tell you this is simply not the case, took a handful of the first people on Nirn, who were sad because they did not know their true form, and constantly shifted from one to another, and made them the fastest, cleverest, and most beautiful of creatures, molding them into several forms and binding them to the lunar lattice so that they had a form for every purpose. During this process, she also made them the best deceivers, able to hide their true nature from others. All of this was done following Fatumai, the first Mother Cat's directions to her daughter upon her deathbed. As such, their seeming duplicitous nature is natural. They are just actively doing it. It's simply how they are. Men in Mer have a difficult time figuring out which of the Khajiit's many personality traits is the real one, failing to understand that all of them are real. While men and Mer believe that the Khajiit are bestial and deceitful, in truth, they are extremely complex, much more so than many would like to believe. That complexity, combined with their sheer fluidity of their nature, makes the Khajiit difficult to understand. Most non-Khajiit races do not bother trying, choosing to view only the hedonistic, tricksy side as their primary racial attribute. This might also explain their use of language when speaking about themselves. Khajiit rarely, if ever, use first-person pronouns or first-person inclusive pronouns, such as we or us. Some argue that this is indicative of a lack of sense of self or a lack of self-identity. However, it is much more likely that their choice of pronoun use is a direct result of their multifaceted and fluid personalities. Khajiit are very aware and do possess a sense of individuality, but as their personalities shift subtly over the course of the day, a week, or a month, how they view themselves shifts with it. If you were to speak to a Khajiit on two separate occasions, to them, you are speaking to the same Khajiit, but slightly different. This one is the one you are talking to now and is not the same as the Khajiit you spoke with before. They do not possess a single I or me, but multiple I's or multiple me's, and distinguish between them by referring to themselves at any particular moment as this one, which differentiates themselves from that one that you spoke with earlier. This one might not be a thief. That one, however, that one was different. But this one knows better. The only way to understand Khajiit is to be Khajiit. Not everyone is so fortunate, yes? Now that we've gotten through all of that, let's take a look at some role-playing tips for Khajiit. The first thing we're going to talk about are names. The Khajiit have very specific naming conventions, not for proper names, but for affixes and prefixes that often indicate a particular Khajiit standing in their society. Many of these are commonly known, such as Dar and Daro, which mean thief in the Khajiit's native tongue of Ta'agra. Many outsiders tend to fixate on this, but to the Khajiit it is an honorific given to one who is supremely clever, though it also applies to those gifted with deft hands, such as Razumdar. This is usually appended onto the end of a name, whereas most of the other affixes we will discuss are attached to the front of the name. An M placed on the front of a name means child or apprentice. This is usually attached to the names of children or young adults. That brings up a good question though. Just how old is Maik the Liar? J, G, and Ja are added to the names of young adults, generally those without much worldly experience. Ra and Ri are honorifics granted only to Khajiit of great status. I would avoid using either of these since they are rarely used outside of clan mothers and city or tribal leaders, though you can always say it's simply a part of your name and does not mean anything in particular. Naming conventions are easy, personalities are a little bit more difficult. The Khajiit, while perfectly self-aware, tend to do and not think. They are not great thinkers and philosophers. They are men and women of action, of here and now, of doing what feels right at the time, which plays in well with their liquid personalities. There is rarely a thought for the consequences of one's actions. They will simply do whatever comes into their heads and seems right for the given situation. This is often why a Khajiit can be smiling and friendly one moment and violent the next. This is not unusual in Khajiit, and while it is disturbing to Man and Mer, it is simply how Khajiit are. It is the delicate touch of Jon and Jode, the push and pull of the lunar lattice tugging on the soul strings of their Khajiiti children. The Khajiit are a whimsical people bound by the lunar lattice and forever caught in the two moons dance. While not an inherently dangerous people, to outsiders they may seem flippy-floppy or duplicitous. But the Khajiit are the cleverest and most beautiful of all of Tamriel's creatures. This one knows the truth. This one dances in the light of Jode and Jon and grins at the world. Well, that is going to be it for this one for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you like what you see and you want to see more, don't forget to hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends. You may also go and check out this one's Patreon. If you feel like you should donate to help this one create better videos such as this, feel free to go check it out. Donate if you like. Don't donate if you like, it is entirely up to you. Anyways, this one must be going. Be safe, have a good weekend, have a good week, and this one will see you again in Tamriel.